You'll never feel the way I feel. You don't know if my love is real. Baby, listen to me, here's the deal. When you're not here, I'm not the same. I'm needing a new chapter, babe. Been stuck here in a bed for days. I've been staring at the telephone, cause when you're gone, I miss your face. Late o'clock, body talk. There's no need to bring it up. Nothing you say makes it better. Wrecking ball, tear apart. Issues left behind, restart. Nothing you say makes it better. Bring it right back to me, baby. No, we've been here before. Give me the real this time, no cap, no lies, it's our encore. Bring it right back to me, baby. I know my heart wants more. Give me the good this time, no cap, no lies, it's our encore. I never wanna give you up. I know we've been through way too much, but I'm confident we'll make it through. I'm here for you, you're not by yourself. Late o'clock, body talk. There's no need to bring it up. Nothing you say makes it better. Wrecking ball, tear apart. Issues left behind, restart. Nothing you say makes it better. Bring it right back to me, baby. No, we've been here before. Give me the real this time, no cap, no lies, it's our encore. Bring it right back to me, baby. I know my heart wants more. Give me the good this time, no cap, no lies, it's our encore. I can see you looking at me. Yeah, my eyes are open wide. So you want me to set you free? Take a walk with me outside. Tell me everything about you. Yeah, 'cause I really wanna know. You can ride with me forever. Yeah, anywhere you wanna go. Night is over the park and a few brave stars. I give you the moon and my all is yours. Don't hesitate, just give me your all. Just give me your all. So let's fly into a dream I won't deny. I'm so in love, let's go for gold. Let's go for gold. If we ever was lost before, now we finally found our way. And love is stronger than anything. We will make our own way. Night is over the park and a few brave stars. I give you the moon and my all is yours. Don't hesitate, just give me your all. Just give me your all. So let's fly into a dream I won't deny. I'm so in love, let's go for gold. Yeah, let's go for
Welcome to the only show bringing cops and the community together for some real talk and some real listening. This is uncut. This is uncensored. This is Black and Blue Live. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing out there? Welcome to Black and Blue Live. My name is Dale. I'm the host. Thank you for joining us here. Today's show, we got a good one here for you today. You know, normally I do these shows on Sundays, but I had a little something going on with the family yesterday on Sunday, so I'm trying out this new thing on here on Mondays. Hopefully this works out for you. Appreciate everybody for checking us out. We are live today here on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So make sure everybody that whatever you're watching this on, send in those comments and questions, and we will definitely get those in for you. So like I said, we got a good show for you here today. We're going to tackle domestic violence and what it means here in our country. And yeah, we got some great experts in this panel to talk about it. So without further ado, let me bring them on. All right, my first guest here is a captain with the East Haven, Connecticut Police Department. Everybody, please help me welcome to the show, Captain Joseph Murgo. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. Dale, thank you so much for inviting me to be on. I really appreciate it. It's a great subject to talk about. My name is Joseph Murgo. I'm a captain with the East Haven, Connecticut Police Department. Been around since 2003, about to hit my 19th year on the job. Throughout my career, I've done a host of different things, domestic violence related. I was a post-certified instructor, a big part in implementing the lethality assessment program to the town of East Haven a few years back. And I'm currently the commander of our investigative services division, where we do a lot of domestic violence follow-ups through that office as well. So I'm happy to be here, and give me all the questions you got. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a real robust conversation here today. So, all right. Next guest here is a deputy district attorney out in Fulton County, Georgia. That's in the Atlanta metropolitan area. Everyone, please help me welcome in Simone Hilton. How you doing, Simone?
Good evening. Thank you for having me again here to talk with you about a very important topic. As you already mentioned, I'm a deputy district attorney with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office under the leadership of Fonnie T. Willis, who actually created this unit to specialize in handling intimate partner domestic violence cases. And so I have a team of 13 individuals in total, and our sole focus is dealing with intimate partner violence. I've been a prosecutor for 12 years, but the last of my last 5 years has been solely focused on domestic violence. So I think this is a topic that we really need to discuss and that our community needs to be aware of and involved in. And so I'm glad to be here and look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us here today as well. Our next guest here is the Vice President of Domestic Violence Services for the YWCA out in Nashville, Tennessee. Everyone, please help me welcome in Damian Talley. Everybody loves you, even the kids, Damian, even the kids.
I feel that love. I appreciate it. And it's special on that.
Right.
Thank you so much for inviting me on to talk about this critical topic today. As you said, me and Tally, I'm the Vice President of Services with BCA Nashville. Oversee the just immersed.
No, Damian,
in the state.
I'm sorry, but your mic is really cutting in and out. We'll see if we can get that fixed there. Maybe if you are you using a computer there? Maybe you can just disconnect that and just use the microphone that's on the computer. It might work a little bit better. And then we'll come back to you there, because it's really hard to understand what's going on if you just want to unplug that. And then we'll get back to you here after we introduce our next guest. She is a domestic violence survivor and now a public speaker. Everyone, please help me welcome to the show, Miss Stephanie Caples.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Excited to be here and to share my story, to speak on behalf of those that are out there that have experienced domestic violence. I am a survivor and an advocate, and I have been doing this for over 20 years now. And I'm not going to stop, not willing to stop until this is no longer an issue in our community. So I'm excited to be amongst this panel of all these excellent individuals that are out there on the lines fighting every day. So thank you to the panel. Thank you, Dale. And thank you to everyone out there that's willing to open their minds, their hearts and ears so they can join this fight with us.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. And then, so let me real quick, sorry about that. I'll mute you real quick because it looks like you're trying to figure out what's going on there, Damien. And when you're done, just give me a thumbs up, and then we'll come to you. Let me know when you're ready, and then we will come to you. Are you ready now? Hey, you should be good. No, we can't hear you at all. So why don't you continue working on that, and we will make sure we get you on because we want to hear your perspective as well, Damien. So, yep, you should be good to go. But anyway, so that's our panel of guests, and hey, let's get to it. All right, so this conversation today is the effects of domestic violence on everyone involved. That's the victims, that is the families, and even the perpetrators themselves. So we'll get into that real quick. But what do we, when we talk about domestic violence, of course, we think about it as the physical form, but there's other forms of domestic violence as well, or domestic abuse. Let's talk about that. Stephanie, you can start that off. What other forms of domestic abuse is there?
Sure, there's mental abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, you name it. There's so many different ways someone can create power and control over someone where we would love it to be cut and dry, where somebody would just go ahead and physically hit and they can say, yes, this is a crime right there, and they do that. But there's so much that goes even well before that first hit, that first physical interaction that's gone on. And so that's important to peel back all those layers so we can look at the different levels of abuse so people can even recognize that they're being abused. Because I'll say for me, the signs and the flags were there, but hindsight's 20/20, and you don't realize until you've been educated and someone teaches you that these were actual steps and things that were going on and flags that if I had known then or seen them, then we wouldn't have had to escalate and get to that point where it became physical. And so, yeah, when you look at your financial abuse, you've got people that cannot maybe don't have access to the money or it's controlling them that way. So they absolutely cannot get out of the house. Your mental and emotional abuse, someone can abuse you physically today, but you're still taking it in your mind with you years down the road of things they've said that you're no good. You'll never be anything without me. Lots of negative things, talk that's going on with that person. And I always give an example that you could have a solid rock. And if you have one drop of water that is constantly dropping in the same place on that rock and chipping away, that rock will dent, it will split. So even the most solid of foundations over time, as the negativity, as those things come through, will penetrate you to your soul and break you down. And so it's important for us to recognize, I'll get on my tangent. I'm a talker, y'all. It will absolutely.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. Yes.
It will entrap your mind. So
yes.
Join in, y'all. I can go all day.
Yeah, we love to hear it. We love to hear it. Damien, are you back? No, it doesn't appear. We can see your mouth moving, but we don't hear anything. So we will continue to work on Damien, ladies and gentlemen. But Simone and Joseph, tell us a little bit about these sorts of domestic abuse that you guys see in your realm. What kind of cases are coming through you guys' office, especially out there in Atlanta? I know you were talking about you had Simone, a large caseload. What sort of cases are you seeing in your office?
So in my office and my unit, we actually handle all intimate partner violence from battery family violence all the way up to homicides. And so I currently carry a caseload. My team, we currently carry a caseload of about 325, and I'm going to say indicted cases. And what does that mean? Those are cases that have gone before a grand jury. They've found probable cause, and we're we're going through the trial process and getting ready to try those cases, my team is looking at 325. Approximately 60 of those are homicides. So I'm seeing everything from battery, family violence to sexual assault, to domestic violence, rapes, all the way up to the unfortunate end, which is homicides. And so we're really trying to focus on those cases before they get to homicides, to hope that when we see the case again, I'm not seeing a victim on the other end of the medical examiner's table. And so we are really trying to focus in on how can we resolve these issues and resolve this in our community so that these numbers can go down. And like I said, that's indicted cases. I still have about 350 cases that are not even indicted. So it hasn't even started the trial process yet. So that's how much is going on in our community. And because of the rise in because of COVID and the pandemic, unfortunately, we've seen those numbers increase and escalate because intimate partner violence happens where? In the home, where victims or survivors haven't been able to make contact with outside resources or to get that help that they need. And so unfortunately, we're seeing those numbers increase dramatically, at least here in Atlanta. And I'm sure that's the same across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Joseph.
Yeah, that's the same with us. I think Stephanie hit it on right on the head. Domestic violence originates from, a power and control, standpoint. And, we see abusers from, all demographics, all races, colors, and creeds. But the one thing is that's a common denominator is that power and control. It's that isolation. It's that physical abuse, which has come to be the predominant form of domestic violence, but we see it, in financial cases. We just wrapped up a case where the wife stole almost $1 million from her husband and did it by convincing him that he was suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. And every time he became, suspicious of where his money went, she just kind of reiterated that this is just his dementia kicking in and made him think that he was going crazy when he really knew, what was going on. So again, we see all forms, always stalking, GPS cases. Now that technology is becoming so cheap and so readily available, so stalking cases are on the rise. And Simone hit it also on the head. COVID really did something to our domestic violence cases. It increased, threefold because of the close proximity that victims are to their abusers. And that there was nowhere for them to go for those many months that we were dealing with COVID-19. We were still out there doing our job as police officers, but I think victims were in a feeling, were in a place of feeling stuck and without any avenues of escape. So it was one of our major pushes, public service pushes to reach out to somebody, have a strong support system, let them know that just because, we are all in this together in the pandemic and we are all forced to be home, there is still avenues of escape and ways to get help. So, we think we did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, real. Appreciate that. Hopefully we can get Damien back on at some point. But till then, you were talking about real quick, Joseph, that, a female, and when most people think about domestic, they think about male on female. A female did some financial abuse to her husband. So we got to talk about females. It's not just male on female. You got female on female, right? And same sex relationships, male on male, and female on male. So talk about that piece of this puzzle as well.
Yeah. So, again, domestic violence, I think the narrative out there, and excuse me if I fall into the narrative, it could happen across any, male, female, female. But when we talk about it, we tend to refer to the victim as a female and the abuser as a male. And that's just for ease of conversation. So if I do that, I apologize, but I think everybody, sort of understands what we mean, that it can go across any lines. But yeah, I mean, a couple cases come to mind. This one with the financial abuse was the most recent. And again, I mean, she had some family issues, and she stole a lot of the money to kind of help some of her family members that were down and out. But some of the facts of the case were pretty disturbing. And that's why it's important for us to check on our elderly family members as well, and just to really be invested in what they have going on, because that's the only way we were able to prosecute this case, was from a daughter who really didn't trust what was going on with her father and her father's wife. And as they looked into it more and more, they started to see, these deposits that were supposed to go into his bank account, but they were going into her bank account for some reason. And he was left with nothing. And this is over the course of 20 years, believe it or not. And it took this long for everyone to figure it out. And then it took some soul searching, because once they realized they had a crime on their hands, they felt betrayed more than anything else, But the facts remain the same. She stole about $600,000. It made national news, about $600,000 from her husband. And packaged it as he had dementia, and he really didn't know what was going on. And every time he became a little suspicious, she kind of ramped it up more and more. And there was actually one instance where he was dead set on going to the bank to speak with somebody about why, all his pension funds and lawsuit funds never made it to his account. And she talked him into not going. She made him feel like they were going to laugh at him, like he was in the wrong here. And he wasn't. I mean, he was spot on, and it's frustrating for us, obviously, because once the story hit, people in the comments are pretty ruthless. And a lot of people were like, if the guy knew he didn't have dementia, then why did he think he had dementia? And, we just revert back to, that's what that power and control does to you. Even if you start to question yourself, even if you are 100% dead set on, knowing yourself, it's the power and control that your spouse has, somebody that's supposed to love you and somebody that you love back. It's that power and control that's the most compelling.
Wow.
And to touch on what Joseph said, I mean, he nailed it right there when you're talking about the power of control, but you're looking at of taking someone and isolating them, making sure that they don't have access to people that maybe will start to speak to them of, hey, this doesn't sound right. I don't think you have dementia, or I don't think you have issues. And when you're surrounded solely by someone that's telling you you're crazy, or I'm noticing these things about you, you start to believe that and take it on to yourself, and you start to think it yourself. And that's what you're constantly inundated with, saying easily, I can understand how somebody would believe that. No different. A lot of times people are telling them that they're crazy, they're ugly, they're worthless. They talk about their weight, they talk about their looks. You will never have anyone, no one would ever want you. You should be lucky that I was even willing to take a chance. There's so many different things that when people say to you constantly, and if you're already dealing with self-esteem issues, if you're already dealing with isolation, if you're already dealing with shame and humiliation, you have all of these things that you're taking on, and you become the persona. You become the label that someone's now started to put onto you. And it's quite easy to fall in line with that. And yeah, I'm sure there's several times he thought, well, do I really have dementia? Or am I really crazy? Or what's going on here? Like you said, this is someone that they're supposed to know, love, trust, someone that's supposed to have their best interests at heart, someone who claims that they love them as well. And they do, but they have an issue and a problem, and they aren't making those decisions, and they are doing power control in order to control that whole entire situation or to keep the situation. So she was successful in doing that. It's no different than any other different types of abuse that's out there. It's the same, it's almost textbook, to be honest, where people use the same methods in order to do so, and they're methodical with it.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the thing. Oh, sorry. I was going to say abusers play on that, because Captain Murgo touched on something about what people were saying in the comments, right? He was saying that people are like, if he didn't know he had dementia, then why would he stay? Why would he do that? That's what abusers try to focus on, right? Because they know society has this perception that, well, if someone's being abused, why would they stay? And it's a misconception, not understanding what power and control is, that this individual, and I was getting ready to do, she's not staying, and you got to kind of train yourself not to do that. But the survivor or the victim is not staying solely because they want to be abused, but it's because they have been for so long told that they're not something, that they can't do something, that they can't be independent, that they can't survive without their abuser. They don't know how to leave. I know there's a question that we may get to eventually about the reasons that someone may stay in a relationship, but it's so much more than, well, if he or she's being abused, why don't they leave? Because there's been so much power and control that has taken over the mindset of that person, that they don't even understand that they can be independent on their own. And you have to retrain the mind to realize that. And so I think that kind of just talked on the misconception that people have who haven't been in these relationships, that they don't understand it. And so oftentimes in our cases, we have to bring in experts. We have to bring in domestic violence experts to explain to our jury why someone may have stayed in this relationship. What is power and control? There's what we talk about, the cycle of violence and the power and control wheel. And we have to explain that to individuals who might not be in these relationships on a day in and day out basis, but to understand that, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about domestic violence.
Absolutely. A comment real quick on Facebook. Armanda Rojas says emotional and mental abuse is the worst, only second to actually taking a life. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. So it looks like Damien probably won't be able to make it back. He's having some technical difficulties, but he's going to continue to work on that, and we'll continue the discussion and on that. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about, your situation that you were in and how you got out of it.
Sure. And I always tell people I am not the Cinderella story, and I am not the model citizen of how everybody wants that answer to be and to go. I got married extremely young, and hindsight, once again, I say, is 2020 looking back, and things that should have been the flags and should have been a sign, I confused them or looked at them as, oh, he's just passionate. Oh, he just has a small temper. Oh, it's just because he loves me so much, where those should have been red flags of, those are signs of there's something going on with his emotional maturity. There are signs of anger management issues that are going on there. There's signs that he doesn't have the coping skills necessarily for conflict resolution. But still got married and found myself in a situation that once I was deep in, I didn't know how I got there. And when you start adding in not only the power and control, but you put in the humiliation, the shame, the embarrassment, when you put in, you pretty much are living a double life, because you want to keep everything behind closed doors, because you don't want anyone to know what's going on in your household. You don't want anybody to know that this person who portrays to be this strong individual at work, as your friend, as your church member, as whatever, your family member, you want to continue to have that reputation and everyone to see you in that light. So you will do more. You will lie, you will manipulate, you will find any way to keep this deep, dark secret to stay behind the closed doors by any means necessary. So that even gives more power and control to an individual, because they know they can use that and they can play upon that. And I can tell you, at that time, I actually worked in social services. I worked in the human services field. So then you add that of who helps the helpers, because you already work with them in a professional atmosphere. You can't go to them for help. You can't go be anonymous. You can't go get this and nobody's going to talk about it. Or where do you turn on that? So it becomes, then you have to live this lie in your professional life. You got to live this lie in your personal life. And so you become even more isolated, where you have nowhere to turn in your mind. You have nowhere that you can go in your mind, because maybe I can love this through. Maybe I can love it enough where we can get the help, and then no one has to know we went through these things. And so when we come out on the other side, maybe then we can put the best foot forward and then talk about, oh yeah, baby, we went through some hard times when we were younger. And so then you think, maybe I can do that. I come from a family, my parents were married for 50 years. And here I am in a scenario that I didn't expect to walk into, but I did. And once you saw the signs beforehand, you're like, oh my God, I should have caught this sooner, but I didn't. And now I'm in it. How do I make this work? How can I fix this? How can I survive in the circumstances? How can I, instead of admitting I made a mistake or terrible choice. And instead of doing the work that I needed to do to find out why I was willing to ignore those flags, why I got into a relationship that I should not have gotten into to begin with, I went ahead and tried even harder to make it work. I tried everything that I could, even though I'm broken inside. And so I tell people all the time, I would go and perhaps have a physical altercation that morning, go ahead and put my makeup on, put the mask on, put the clothes on, cover up any kind of bruises or any kind of cuts, and then go smile in your face all day long and be the best employee that you ever had. I went and took care of other people when I couldn't even take care of myself. And then I'd go back home that night and then you cry in the shower because you don't have time to have a breakdown and you don't think about anything else other than surviving day to day. And I had multiple times where people heard screams or they heard thumps and they called the cops. So now I have to work even harder to protect my secret because now I've got outsiders coming in, and I respect y'all for what you do. And I know it's a tough job. I am your worst nightmare at that time because just as much as you were pressing harder to try to come and rescue me is as hard as I was pushing back for you to go away, because I know how to navigate this scenario. This is the devil I know. You've become the devil I don't know. I know how to survive, I think, in this situation. And I know, especially knowing the process, doctors make the worst patients. I know you want me to go tell my story, the deepest, darkest secret that are the most embarrassing and the most shameful to me, to about 13 people that are come through between law enforcement, the multiple law enforcement that show up, then the victim advocate that they're probably going to call. Then you want me to go talk to the court system. Then you want me to talk to what magistrate during one night, but it's going to be somebody else in the daytime. And then you want me to go to the shelter or whoever they have assigned. And you keep lining up all these people you expect me to go and tell my deepest, darkest secrets that I can't even tell my own family that knows and loves me. And I can't even process myself of what's going on. So when they come knocking on my door because they get a phone call, I am telling them I don't know what they're talking about. I have already cleaned up before you can see the evidence of what's going on. We all have, how many times do you hear we tripped and fell? We come up with the dumbest excuses or things that we can tell you of how these things happen, but it's the truth. And I can tell you from my point of view, then it became, how can I change this system so it can leave me alone? Because when the cops came and I turned them away, no, I'm not pressing charges. And some of them are angry with me. I've had them yell at me, well, you should do this, this, and this. And I've heard the, why are you staying? If we keep coming to your house, we're not going to come when you really need us to come. I've heard it all. I've turned to the church. I've heard the, why haven't you prayed more? Have you read these scriptures in the Bible of how we should do this within the marriage? I've turned to the different things. And when you have those individuals that try to help in their method of how they think they should help, you shut down even more. You shut down and then you become even more isolated. And you ask, how did I leave? I wish I could tell you that I was strong and picked myself up and one day got a wild hair up my behind and said, okay, here's my plan, the action plan. I'm going to get my money and I'm going to go. No, that's absolutely what did not happen. I literally was talking on the phone and he pulled a knife on me while I was on the phone and I dropped the phone. And the person who was on the other line did not hang up and they heard what was going on. So they got someone to call the cops then and there and still had that on the line. And so that's what started. So then it became out of my control. I couldn't hide it anymore. I couldn't lie it away. I couldn't manipulate the situation. I couldn't pretend that this wasn't going on because they had the proof or somebody had heard and knew exactly what was going on. And then I can say at that point, it became out of my control and it became out of my hands, because once that alarm was sounded, then it was no longer whether I pressed charges, whether I was going to go forward. They went ahead and took that option and they ran with it. Now, angry at the time? Absolutely. I no longer had the control. I no longer could control, manipulate, keep the lid on it. But grateful today that people took that control from me because I wasn't strong enough to go and do it myself. And so individuals were. And that's when I always tell people I've been assigned a victim advocate and I've actually worked as a victim advocate. So I've got both sides of the coin going on there. And it's important for, I wish Damien was here with us, it's important not to cookie cutter everyone, because everyone's situation is going to be different. Everybody wanted me to fit into that nice, neat box of, oh, she's pregnant with 3 children. And that's why there's domestic violence going on in the house. And she's come from a broken home and this, that, and the other. I didn't fit in that box. And I wasn't going to go sitting on somebody's couch. So when a victim advocate tried to call me the first time, I pretty much let her know. I called her everything but a child of God when she called. And I just hung up that phone because we're not going to play this game. I'm not coming in there. You're not going to show me. I already got copies of the power control wheel. I already got the action plan. I could fill it out myself. I already had, because, doctors make the worst patients, y'all. And so what I can say is somebody had the forethought to get someone else who they thought, let's let her try. They didn't have to have, this case is assigned to only this person. I'm in this person's zone, so they have to be the one that comes to me to try to reach me. No, they passed it and said, all right, we got this one. And, she's in social services. She's in social work. She kind of knows the system. So they got somebody who literally called me. And I wish she was watching to this day. And she called me and she was like, yeah, you're not coming to my office. Let's go to lunch. And it kind of caught me off guard because I'm so used to the actual, everybody's got their step-by-step, their textbook of what they have, what they were taught in college and what they got in grad school and all the letters behind their name. They all do the same exact steps. And she's like, nah, we're good. I know you ain't going nowhere. And you know the stats of how many times people go back. Let's go to lunch. I got to cross this off the list anyway. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And we went to lunch, and over lunch, she treated me like a human. She treated me like a person. She treated me not necessarily client, doctor-patient relationship. She talked to me like a person. And she's like, okay, if you're going to stay, let's do the action plan. You know the drill. Let's talk about if you're going to get in an argument, where do you need to be? You need to position yourself away from any kind of weapons that are in the home. You want to make sure that you're closest to the door if something kicks off. You definitely don't want to have an argument in the kitchen because why? You got a lot of knives that are in there. Can we at least get your safety planning? Can we at least get extra keys somewhere else? Can we at least have code words set up with your friends? You know these things. And so she went ahead over lunch, and that's how we talked about it. And that's what planted those seeds of doing this.
Those are good things to have those action plans going, to have those plans of actions of what you're going to do if this happens and how to deal with certain situations. Not a lot of people know about that. So it's good that you had that somebody to talk to you about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. If Damien's there, by all means, everyone has local area resources, whether about a women's shelter, law enforcement only has how to reach these particular resources, and the individuals that can go through proactively with you for the safety planning. They talk about stats. They say at least 7, it takes about 7 times before people leave. I believe those numbers are skewed. I think it's way more than 7 times. I think that's what we just like to have as the average. And so obviously, if we know that, then we have to go in a position of how can we keep you safe and alive in the meantime until you finally do leave, or if you don't leave, how do we keep you the safest in that? And I think it's hard for people because they want that final result of you're gone and out of it. But there's a whole huge in between that we have to go through before they get to that level.
And our LinkedIn user on LinkedIn, I guess there's a privacy issue. We can't see the actual name, but he does say, he or she does say, never give up, keep encouraging and empowering the victims. We appreciate that comment there.
That's true.
Appreciate that comment.
That's why we're here.
That is why we're here. Definitely. So we were talking about those sorts of things. How can people stay in a relationship even though they're going through all this, and you kind of went through all that, Stephanie, but what are sort of the things that you see on the job there, Simone and Joseph, when you're trying to help people? I know out here in California, we have mandatory arrest. We arrest the dominant aggressor regardless of what the victim wants in a situation. It seems like that kind of happened to you, Stephanie, where it was taken out of your hands, where you couldn't say that you want a prosecution or not. What are some of the reasons that you guys see why people stay in these relationships, and how do you get them help to get out?
What I generously love, they still love the person. Children are involved. Oftentimes financial, in the sense of what I hear most recently, they have children and they cannot provide for the children without this individual being present inside of the home. And so they need that individual, that they love them. Sometimes it's, I'm the only person that can care about them. They don't have anybody else. I am their only person. So it's that feeling of that sense of responsibility. And Ms. Campbell was absolutely right. Oftentimes I have to wear these 2 hats. I have to wear this prosecution hat, but then I also have to wear like a counselor social service hat, because oftentimes I'm the first time I am new to your life. You have been with this individual, whether it's been a few months, whether it's been a few years, whether it's been 20, 30 years. And now I, as the big bad state, is coming in and telling you what you can and what you can't do, what you should and what you shouldn't do. And there's a fine balance of knowing that this individual may want to maintain that relationship, again, because as we just said, they say it takes 7 times to leave, but really it's probably more than that. So you have to balance this person wanting to stay in that relationship, but also looking at, again, I don't want this to be a homicide. So what does that look like in practicality? And sometimes it's me putting on my big sister hat, because like I said earlier, most of my victims are young Black women. That's just my caseload that I have are young Black women between the ages of 19, 20, 21 to probably about 25, 26. And so I find myself having this conversation like, look, I get it, because they do tell me to lie. At this point, they're like, it didn't happen. I punched myself. I ran into the wall. I did whatever it is you're going to do. And this is usually my what I say to them. Look, you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. That is perfectly fine. However, you were there. Not me. No one else. When I step away from this, you were there. You know what happened. So let's just stop there. And normally they'll get real quiet. And they'll be like, you right, Ms. Hilton. Okay, so let's start there. Then let's talk about the next steps. How can you value yourself? Now, whether or not it's going in through one ear, out the other, I don't know. But I'm like, let's talk about valuing yourself. I'm not talking about conviction. I'm not talking about going to jail. I'm not talking about any of that yet. I'm just talking about how can we value you? Because you want to be with him, right? You still want to stay in that relationship, right? But do you think your 3-year-old son should watch you get abused every day? Probably not. So let's talk about accountability. What does that look like to you? And then I can have a different conversation. Not, okay, we're going to lock him up. No, but maybe I might need to let him go through a family violence intervention course. Maybe I need to give him some steps in place so that when this happens again, he has some tools in his pocket that he can use. And again, I'm sorry because we keep saying this can be any person, that power dynamic.
Yes.
Now we can talk about some tools. Now we can put you in a place where, one, you're thinking about the value to yourself. And two, if you want to stay, then let's move forward. But then there are other cases where honestly, I gotta be big bad state. Because a matter of fact, I had a case, not me, one of my attorneys last week. This individual had 4 prior domestic violence cases against other women, not even the women that were present. So there's 4 open cases. The victim in this case did not want to talk to us, did not want to come in, did not want to do anything. We spoke to her family. Her family said, he still is beating her to this day. So at that point, and they said, Ms. Hilton, if you don't do something, he's going to kill her. So at that point, I still have to move forward, even in spite of, because the way that what I saw in the history and what I knew from the family was still happening, we still had to move forward, even when she did not want to. And matter of fact, cussed us out in the hallway afterwards, right? My only prayer is in a couple of years, she could step on the other side of this and see why we did it. But oftentimes we're balancing those two things, which is what the victim need and their safety. And it's a hard balance sometimes.
Yeah. You talked about, and someone, I can bring that back up, Mecca Anderson on YouTube says, way to think about the whole family, Attorney Hilton. And we applaud you there. How do these domestic violence things, in your estimation, in your experience, affect the family, the kids that have to witness this on a daily basis?
You know, I really do wish Mr. Talley was on, because I'm not the social service person. But what we hear, what the statistics are, is that sometimes children who witness abuse either become abusers themselves or become abused.
Yes.
Yes. And so we know that because they normalize that behavior, right? So for them, it's normal to either be that's love in their mind because that's what they see, or this is how they show love because that's what they've been taught. So oftentimes, that's what we hear, what I understand. I'm sure Mr. Talley would have had the statistics, but we know that happens, unfortunately. In that same case I was just telling you about, the son said something that was so powerful that it hurt. He said, I love my mom, but I don't like her. Right? This is a 14-year-old who actually had to run outside to try to intervene between his mother and the offender and the abuser. And we know that affects him and affected him just in us speaking to him and talking to him. But that was some powerful words. He was just like, I don't like the fact that she allows herself to be abused in this way. Okay. And he was watching that. And so we know that has an effect. Luckily, he's surrounded by his other family members who love and support him. But we know that has a tremendous effect on our children.
Absolutely. Yep. What about in your estimation, your experience, Joseph?
So I wanted to touch on 2 points that were just made. One being, when I first got on the job many years ago, I wanted to chase bad guys around. I wanted to get guns and drugs off the street, and I just wanted to run and gun. And I slowly realized that there was so much more to the job, right? And a big aspect of the job was human nature and psychology and why people do the things they do. And I sort of aligned my career to go down that field of de-escalation and just trying to get to the root cause of why people do things. And that's sort of what led me to the whole domestic violence subject and doing my best to learn it as best I can. One thing I learned was, being abused by a loved one, and I say loved one in quotes because we talk about that power and control, but being abused by a loved one sets up two very powerful human instincts that should never conflict with each other. One being, the instinct, to stay in a secure environment, and the other being the instinct to flee a dangerous situation. And it's so powerful because your human nature wants to pull you one way or another, right? But if you're in a domestic violence incident, you don't know which way to go, right? Fleeing a dangerous situation, you would think would be the easy answer, and staying in a secure environment, you think would be the easy answer, but it's not. There's so many blurred lines when you think about that. The other one becomes, there's so many in domestic violence incidents. There is so much time spent in fear. That those small moments, those small increments of when your abuser becomes the best version of himself, provides this overwhelming relief, and you almost become addicted to that, right? And victims almost, for lack of a better term, get forced into submission to catering to what will make the abuser his better self. And a lot of times that doesn't come, right? Because it's not the victim's fault. It's never the victim's fault. But the victim comes to believe that if they do X, Y, or Z, then these moments of relief, these small increments of time when they aren't living there, that if they do X, Y, or Z, then they will be able to experience some of those better times. And that's why the bad times are really bad, and the good times are really, really good. And we see that victims really come accustomed to aligning their personality and catering to their abusers to get them to that point where they are their better selves, So, as far as human nature is concerned, it's really interesting to see what violence and domestic violence does. We'll go on calls and the complainant is, a female who's being abused by her intimate partner. And once we get there, and a lot of people don't understand the mandatory arrest. A lot of people think that, the police are going to come and we'll separate the two for the night, or all's, the victim wanted was for her abuser to know that she was serious, and that's why she called the cops, and we would go there. But if we have probable cause to make that arrest, then we're bound by law. We can't not make that arrest. And then that's when things change, right? Because the victim didn't necessarily think that, her husband or boyfriend was going to be getting arrested tonight and be put on bond, and maybe it's going to cost him money to get out. And then what does he do when he gets out? Because we explained to her that there's going to be, a temporary protective order, the conditions of release, we call it in Connecticut, and he's not going to be able to come home. And so it sets up like a butterfly effect of issues that the victim foresees, and we get blamed for making things worse, when it's just our attempt to keep him or her safe. So we do see a light switch turn off sometimes when we get to a scene, we're about to make an arrest, then all of a sudden it's both of them against us too. And we understand that, and we're used to that, and it's no blame to anybody else. It's just how it is. But again, as far as the children are concerned, again, 19 years on. So when I first got on, I dealt with the parents of now the kids who are now starting to find themselves in the legal system. It was very interesting because, you're a brand new guy and you're on FTO and you're rolling around with a veteran guy. And he told me, he's like, watch, you're going to be dealing with these people's kids one day, and they're going to be into the same exact things as mom and dad. And, let's face it, kids are most impressionable in about their first decade of life, right? Between 0 to 10 years old, the life experiences, the values that you share with your children, that they're like sponges. They take all of that in. They may not acknowledge that. They may not tell you, hey, dad, I'm paying attention. Hey, mom, I'm paying attention, but they are. And it's how you treat your spouse. I tell my daughters all the time, we don't hit the people that we love, because, they're 4 and 2 and they get into, little skirmishes here and there. But, I think it's important, and my wife thinks it's important to instill these values on them immediately. We don't hurt the people that we love. Yes. And it's gone such a long way, even with their little minds and their little brains. I'll walk in and they're fighting and I don't even have to say it. I go, guys, what's daddy say? They say, we don't hit the people that we love. And we feel like we've accomplished at least, a little something there. But yeah, I mean, kids are very impressionable. If a father, if a son sees his father hitting mom, then there's a good chance that son at some point when he grows up will also hit the one he's supposed to love. If a daughter sees her mother take the abuse, then there's a good chance, it's not always, but there is a good chance that she will also take abuse from the one that she loves. It's all cyclical.
Yep. And Melva Stennis on YouTube says, very sad. The victims are probably brainwashed into believing that no one else will love them.
A lot of times.
Probably true. And it's interesting that what you said, and all you guys been saying that, but if a young man sees his father abusing his significant other, chances are that he will do the same when he gets into a relationship when he's older. And the same thing for the female, if she sees her mom, because we kind of emulate our parents. But like I was always talking about this, it's easier said than done to leave. You see these signs and signals, and you hear people talking about, why don't they leave? Oh, I wouldn't let no man, touch me. Easier said than done, right? And when you're put in that situation, things are a little bit different because, again, it's with somebody that you care about, and you didn't expect to be in that sort of situation. Yeah.
And just to end on, it doesn't happen immediately, right? If you ended up in a relationship, and a day later, he hits you, then you'd be out of there. That's right. An easy one, but it slowly builds up to this, right? It slowly turns into the isolation, into the nobody else wants you except me. and the financial isolation and pulling you from your support system, which, when I talk to domestic violence victims, I talk about how important it is to have that safety plan, how important it is to have that support system, how important it is to have somebody that you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they won't ask any questions, and slowly, exactly, the domestic violence hotline and everything else. But like, it builds up to this. It doesn't happen immediately. And then finally, once it happens, that's when you feel stuck, but it's after a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like we were saying there, if you need help, anyone out there watching this program and you're wondering how to get out, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline 24 hours a day at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. All right. What are some of the signs that someone just getting into a relationship can look towards to see that, maybe this person, statistically may be an abuser later on? Or if you are in a relationship and you start seeing these sorts of signs, I know, Stephanie, you were talking about there were some signs and red flags that you kind of missed.
Absolutely. I'd like to say obvious, but we seem to be blinded by love in the beginning of this. When they have high levels of anger, whether explosive anger, throwing things, shoving, pushing, as Captain said earlier, it's not going to begin immediately with them just deciding to hit you in the very beginning. But it can just be certain comments. It could be, if you all of a sudden they don't like your friends, they don't like this family member, they don't like anybody else that's typically your support systems that are out there. Or it could even be something as, well, maybe you should wear something different today, or I don't like it when you wear that. Or you need to start doing this differently, or start hearing that more and more, and you're really trying to change exactly who you are as you're going through. When I'll say, even and for me, things would be thrown, but they wouldn't hit me. So then this is where, once the shock and awe is gone of, okay, he threw this, or he punched a wall, or he's done something, this, that, and the other. Then once you get used to that, then it's time for them to up the ante, because that doesn't work the same way that it worked before. So now it's, well, maybe threw it, now it's like whizzing past my head, just that part. But eventually it's going to be where it progresses, where it's going to actually come my direction. And also realizing, when they say people are out of control, a lot of times they're very much in control during these episodes, because the things thrown and broken were my items, not his. So able to differentiate what I'm going to throw and break. These things are important to you. Let me go ahead and destroy those things. And also, please don't confuse substance abuse and domestic violence anger issues, because people can drink and not be an abuser, physically abusive, as well as somebody can be physically abusive and not use substances. So that is not an excuse. And so when people say, oh, this only happens because I drink, or oh, this, that, and the other, or you'll hear, you made me. I wouldn't have done these things if you had done this instead. You made me mad. If you would just do what I say, or if you would just do. So there's just little small snippets of things. And of course, it progresses over time. So it's really, what are the buttons or the things that they can get to you and that they can use to control. Definitely, we spoke about earlier, definitely making feel like you are crazy for thinking this way. You are crazy for thinking that, maybe that there are anger issues. But you also have to look at both Captain and District Attorney, they both mentioned, when they're coming through to arrest them, well, that's going to impact now. Is he going to lose his job? Am I about to lose the financial backing? You want me to leave, but now this income is about to go away or might be affected. So you start to try to protect that at all costs. Because even if I tried to make a plan, now you've got, this is happening. And then somebody loses a job. Where are they? Home. Like the pandemic, everybody was home and home together at the same time. So it makes it a little difficult then. But signs, busy, anything dealing with power and control, anything that they can use to control the situation, to maintain power over you. Even something as you finally think, or you say you're going to leave. Well, now they're crying, I'm going to kill myself if you go. I'm going to commit suicide, or I'm going to kill the children and me. Or there's so many different things that they can do to control the situation and to keep you in the home. Or I'll tell this person, or almost like a blackmail situation. Well, then I'm going to let everyone know that you did X, Y, Z. So there's so many different facets that they can
Yeah.
use. Or, even within the church, well, I will tell the pastor that you did this. I will tell. They will go after anything and everything that may be important to you. And that is what can be, I mean, this is your intimate partner. They know your deepest, darkest secrets. They know your things that you're afraid of. They know, where you turn to, and they know how to take that, twist it, and use that against you at the same time.
Yep. Let's go to the comment wall real quick. Got a comment from Skip Dawson says, how do you get those who are not victims to become involved with this issue? That was something that we were going to definitely bring up here. So, yeah, what can someone do if they suspect, someone that they know is in abusive relationship? How can they get involved to kind of help that person understand what's going on and that they can get help?
I would say first, don't judge. Like, first things first, be an empathetic ear. Because if they think they're judging, they're not going to come. And so I think that you have to be a place of empathy for a friend or a family member. And then with that, be that safe haven, whether that's going to be the person they know, y'all set up code words. I think we talked about that earlier with your safety planning, and helping that. Oftentimes in your local community, there are domestic violence organizations that you can join or that you can reach out to that have outreach efforts of how someone can be an advocate or be a supporter of individuals who are in intimate partner violence relationships. I saw a comment earlier that we can't forget our males who are in intimate partner relationships or domestic violence relationships, as well as those in LGBTQ communities that they're in intimate partner violence relationships. Like we said earlier, this has no color. This intimate partner violence doesn't discriminate. But if you can be of support to that person, I think that's one way that you can help and not be judgmental.
Absolutely. What do you think about that, Joseph?
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes down to positive communication. Let that victim know that you are observing certain behaviors and the abuser, and just ask that question. Do you need help? Are you safe? What do you need from us? What do you need from your support system? Again, after when we make a domestic violence arrest, we give the lethality assessment questions, which is a battery of questions. And if they answer those questions a certain way, we will get them on the phone with a domestic violence advocate immediately. And they reiterate that safety plan, and if they are in immediate danger, which means the term is if they screen in or if they screen in high danger, then we can get them placement immediately at a domestic violence shelter. But a lot of times DV victims aren't they don't come clean with what's going on in their lives, and that's when the people who are closest to them really needs to be invested and not give up, because it may take some prodding, and it may take some work, but I think at the end of the day, if you're a domestic violence victim, somewhere in your character, somewhere in your behavior, you are screaming for help. It just takes a very observant person to find that angle and then to capitalize on it.
Yeah, for sure. How difficult is it, once you get past that, once a victim gets out of a situation and the offender is, say, gone to jail, what have you, how difficult have you guys found in your experience, and particularly you, Stephanie, to enter into a healthy relationship later on in life without thinking that this may happen again, that this is what happens all the time in relationships?
When you are out of that toxic environment, that's when the hard work really begins. This is learned behavior, and depending how long you were in it, there are things you need to do before you even begin to think about getting into another relationship, because you will just repeat the exact same behavior if you have not taken that time out to heal what was the issues and the problems from before. You'll just insert different face, different name, same issues. You have to peel back those onions, those layers of how did you miss the flags? How did you miss those signs? What was lacking before? Was it self-esteem issues? Did you have parental issues? Did you have other things that came to the table well before that was there? How did you find yourself in the scenario? And then what did you learn during that? I'll say for me, I had to take accountability. There was a lot of learned behavior that I had to unlearn. There's a lot of things that rage and anger that I carry inside. Captain mentioned earlier, talking about the fight or flight response. I did not have the correct response because my response was to fight. And I needed to learn flight in a dangerous situation as opposed to standing my ground and be bracing for impact of whatever was about to come through. The hard work of your mind is still carrying on, especially your mental and emotional abuse. That person may not be in front of you anymore, but you still carry those thoughts and those feelings, and that low self-esteem and all those things that were chipped away are still an issue afterwards. And then you're still trying to figure out who you are now versus who you were then, and how do you navigate society with this, and how do you, like you said, how do you balance that out of the fear of getting back into this? Do I trust myself to make a good decision, to make that decision, a healthy relationship? Do I know what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like, sound like, feel like, be? Have you taken the time to heal? Because I can tell you, I did not go straight to therapy, because then once it was, okay, you are single, you got to get a job, you got bills to do, you need a roof over your head, you need food on your table. I don't have children, so I do not qualify for any programs that are out there, because in our state, you must have children to qualify for any of those. So now that what are you going to do? So I threw myself solely into work. And I'm telling you, I worked multiple jobs, because how fast can I finally get a roof over my head? I can't crash on this couch. I can't be homeless. And so I took everything I had and I compartmentalized, and I put everything into rebuilding a life. So I thought that was healthy. But then when I realized that there's certain triggers or there's certain things that all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I thought maybe I dealt with that. But the truth is I didn't deal with any of it. I just compartmentalized it, took the key, threw it away, but it was still there. And one thing about our body, if we don't take the time to deal and process with the things we went through, I'm in a military town, and our service members, when they've gone to war, they've gone overseas. Even if they did not face combat, they still were constantly in that fight or flight mode, and they always were on high alert at any time to be ready or prepared for anything coming that way. Well, similar to when you're in a home where there's abuse or violence, you're always in that fight or flight mode, or you're waiting for that next episode to happen. So you're still in that heightened mode. So you're going to deal with issues later, PTSD or other things that have come through, and it will attack the body just the same. And so when a wise person told me, if you don't take the time to process and deal with those emotions and those things, it's going to shut you down, and the body's going to take over and deal with it on its own. And that was the truth. And that's when the hard work had to come in. That's where, okay, you're going to have to get some counseling. Okay, you're going to have to learn or relearn what healthy looks like. Because for me, my thought process, if I'm in a car with someone, that is not the time to all of a sudden bring up maybe a conversation or issues or something or concerns that you may have, because in my thought process or my experience, well, I'm going to get thrown out of the car. I'm going to get left somewhere. This is going to be a dangerous time for me. So I stay mute, because I need a place where I can run and flee if I have to talk about something that might be a concern to me. And someone had to point out and give me a different train of thought of thinking. In a healthy relationship, people will actually discuss things in the car because they're away from the phone, they're away from other people, the doorbell's not ringing, the TV's not on, they don't have a lot of distractions, and that's actually a good time to actually have a conversation. And so that's where the changing of the mind and having to relearn and rethink these things and realize how to communicate in a healthy manner, not arguing and yelling and throwing. And I'll even say it, we need to get into a culture and a society where it is not normal for women to slap people. I'm going to say it. We cannot, TV glorifies it all the time for women to get away with throwing things as well. I know we always want to say men are the abusers, but there's behaviors that I had to look at as well that are considered and are abusive also. And so I have to retrain and I had to relearn those things are not acceptable. Those things are not healthy. And learning to communicate in a different manner, learning to control anger, learning how to do that, learning also Because what happens when you start to try to heal, the pendulum swings all the way to the other side. And so not everybody's abusive. If somebody's upset, you still got to give them a little room of grace and mercy that they can express that they're upset. And they're not an abuser, but in my mind, flag, this is a big flag. I see a flag now. And so you have to learn how to balance this out. So when you have a healthy relationship in front of you, that you can actually fully recognize and enjoy a healthy relationship. But you have to do the work first. You can't go into a traumatic situation and jump into this and expect to have a healthy relationship when you have not healed and you're not healthy.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me go to the comment wall again real quick. We should have kind of described what domestic violence was in the beginning of the show, but Skip Dawson asked, is domestic violence like son against mother the same as spouse on spouse or significant other? I know at least back here over here in California, it sounds like the same in Georgia, because I heard Simone say intimate violence, intimate partner violence. At least out here in California, it's described as intimate partners involved in an intimate relationship. So it could be boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, anything like that. That's what domestic violence is. Is
so
that true
I'll
for
say
you guys?
no. Well, in Georgia, the statute is family violence. So it covers siblings, parent, child, and things of that nature. Our unit, our domestic violence unit, focuses primarily on intimate partner violence, except for homicides. So I do have a lot of familial homicides, sibling homicides, as well as child and parent homicides, adults. And so we handle that too in a broader sense as far as what we actually specify in our unit, but our office could handle an incident or a case that was more familial violence as well.
Oh. Yeah, that's interesting. We don't have that distinction here in California, because I know some people, some parents say, hey, when you turn 18, I could beat the crap out of you now. So because, now it's just a simple battery as opposed to,
in Georgia, if they live together, it would be
right.
considered battery family violence.
Right. Okay. What about in Connecticut?
For us, as long as that relationship is there, it's determined to be family violence. We'll still make the arrest. You'll go to court the very next court day. The lethality assessment protocol that I talked about earlier, that's just for intimate partner violence.
Yeah.
You have to be in a sexual relationship, have a child in common, something along those lines in order to qualify for those battery of questions. But we have mother-son domestic violence incidents all the time, and although it's not the same as an intimate partner situation, we still see that power and control that exists in intimate partners. It still exists. It's a slightly different dynamic, but it's just as volatile. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's always something in the penal code that can cover whatever the situation is. So if you can articulate it into a certain to fit a certain box that it wasn't in before, then obviously we can do that here in California, in any other state as well.
And I was going to say, especially with son and mother, we find, like Captain Murgo just said, that power and control. Right now, I'm dealing with a domestic violence homicide, an elder abuse homicide, son with the mother, who began taking and stealing her money, so much so that he neglected to take care of her, so much so that she had a number of bed sores and ultimately has died. And so we're seeing that power and control because he was her caretaker, right? And so now we've charged him with homicide because based upon that relationship that he's had, and this is his mother, he failed to take care of her, but he financially exploited her as well. And so you see that kind of power and control and that dynamic, especially when we get to our elderly population, kind of like the case that that was husband and wife, but exploiting our elders. And sometimes, unfortunately, that happens with that parent-child relationship.
Yep. Elder abuse cases as well. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, teens. You know, I mentioned earlier that I'm currently stationed at a high school, and teens aren't immune to these sorts of relationships as well, especially because they're just now getting into relationships and not knowing exactly it depends on what they see in the home, you know, what's acceptable in the home. And you see a lot of females are kind of accepting these controlling boyfriends and things of that nature. What do you guys see, and how can we help our teens that aren't emotionally equipped to kind of deal with this, kind of navigate what should be a healthy relationship and report it if they are involved in something like that?
I'll say I wish we had the opportunity to be more proactive. We talk about good touch, bad touch with younger generations, and we need to have something age appropriate level of teaching them something similar along the lines of domestic violence, because you're looking at young children that are exposed and have learned that behavior well before they even become teenagers. But as far as with the teens themselves, then yes, we absolutely need to be covering these things within the school systems. It seems like the guidance counselors themselves are overworked, their caseloads are horrendous, and they're not able to tackle these issues. So maybe making some things mandatory during their health classes, or having symposiums or something along the lines to help them, or a safe place for them to turn as an outlet of what's going on. We have to reach them. We have to reach them. Like they were mentioning earlier, they're seeing the generations come through of these children that have been exposed, and this is the learned behavior. The good news is it's learned behavior, which means they can be retrained and taught a new behavior. You're still fighting against the grain when they're in the home of the family that is abusive. And so they need to start getting those seeds that are planted in there, and they have the trusted individuals. If we could build the community relations in places where, you know, whether it's somehow everyone's overworked at this point, but they're so important, we can't lose them. And so if we can find a way to reach them through the school systems, or somewhere in their programs that they have, or after school and sports, if we could somehow make sure we're talking about it, or somehow bringing it to light, or somehow attacking that issue every single way, everywhere they turn, so they can finally find maybe someone that they cross paths with, someone that they come to that they could possibly trust to come through to tell this. I honestly, I don't know who necessarily it could be, but just if we could take the time to build these relationships, if we could take the time to find that trusted space, like I said, if some places have the Big Brother programs, or if they have, like in our area, some of our sororities and fraternities are trying to do more things, being role models within the community for our young generation, just anything and everything that we can to reach the youth. We've got to talk about it, and they've got to know there's places that they can turn to for it.
And we're doing that here in Georgia. So we are partnering with the Partnership Against Domestic Violence, and they actually have a teen dating violence coordinator. Well, she has a different title, but she'll go into schools and talk about teen dating violence, the red flags, the signs, to high school students. And in my office, I'm actually speaking with our community liaison to start partnerships and going into the schools, because we know that these cases are getting younger and younger. The way that I really became passionate about domestic violence work in the space of prosecution was a few years ago. I had literally 3 domestic violence homicide cases. I don't know how I ended up getting all 3 of the cases, but I ended up getting all 3 of these cases. All the cases happened within a week of each other. 3 different young women, all under the age of 21, and one was 16.
Wow.
It was a homicide, and she was shot by her boyfriend, right? And at that point, I said, this could be my little sisters. And I mean, literally, I got one was like a Tuesday, then one was a Friday, and then one was like the following Monday, all in one span of a week. And so we know that we have to start talking to our young girls, our young people, because it's happening to our young boys and our young girls.
Yes.
About the signs of domestic violence. Because here's the thing, in those cases, there's not a history of domestic violence. There's no a long history of arrest or contact with the police. Everything was in the text messages. Everything was a controlling behavior that you saw through the text message. He had threatened to kill her in the text message, had threatened to blow up, to burn her family's house down. But of course, what do we think? That's just a joke. That's just funny. Yeah. He loved me. That's why he's just talking that protective talk to me. But no, it's not. And so you got to begin to go into the schools and educate. And so I literally had a conversation with my community liaison last week, like, hey, can we get into the schools to start really talking about those red flags so our young people can see them earlier, and be able to understand and have that knowledge going into these relationships. And again, we're talking about male, females, we're talking about everyone, because that control dynamic is happening at a younger age already.
Already. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. In this last year, the conversation has been to take police officers out of schools, right? For a number of different reasons, and a lot of those reasons are definitely validated. We decided to do the exact opposite. We re-implemented our SRO program in East Haven schools, and it hasn't been in effect since 2013. And it was important for us to make the right choices in officers that will have the biggest impact in the students that would be in their school. And we found tremendous success with it. And again, a huge part of it is because we found, the right personalities to be in those schools and to engage with our student population. But with that comes a lot of opportunities that we would have never had. And one being just to break down the barrier, talk to these young kids, by using first names. It's Officer Burrell is her name, but to a lot of the kids, she's Nicole. Officer Jerosa is in the middle school, but to a lot of the kids, he's George. And that means so much to, kids that age, because we were all teenagers once. And, that's that weird age where we don't really come home and confide with our parents about a lot of things. But we do, for some reason, confide with other people of similar age as our parents, but not necessarily our parents, And when I was in school, I had a great SRO that I really identified with, and I knew how much that meant to me. And I had a couple of SROs that I didn't identify with, and I understood what the anxieties that brought along too. But we have great fits now, and it means so much to be able to now go inside the schools, sit down with some of these kids, just chop it up with them, play basketball with them, just kind of hang out. And the things that we learn, and some of the things that they confide in us in, it's amazing. And we would have never had an opportunity to learn these things if we hadn't broken down that barrier, So to some of these communities that, are conflicted with whether or not it's a good idea to have a police officer in a school, or if it's a bad idea to have a police officer in a school. Listen, there's great arguments on both sides, believe me, and I truly believe that. But I do think that if you find the right fit of officer, and again, it's not an officer that's going to go in there and necessarily be a cop, police officers in schools are not there to impose discipline on the students that go to school. If a kid acts up in class and the teacher wants him out of the class, that's not the officer's responsibility to go in there and get that kid out of that class. That's school administration. That's something totally different from what the officer is there for. And our program definitely reflects that. But again, re-implementing the SRO program in our town has really had a great return on the investment that we put into it. So, that's one of the ways, that we can sort of get to these young kids early enough. And we do have it in the middle school, and we have it in the high school. The elementary school is a little young, to have an SRO in there, but we still filter in and just kind of hang out with the students and chop it up with them during recess and things like that. And that, has really benefited us later on in life, like a couple years later, when it's like, I remember you were in my school, you were really cool to me, and there's just not that stigma that comes with police and youth, and we're really proud of that. So it really does work.
Love to hear it. So once a victim escapes the situation and gets out, and the perpetrator is arrested or is given some sort of classes, anger management or what have you, classes to kind of correct that behavior, does that really happen? Do offenders actually rehabilitate, in your opinion?
have to always keep the belief and believe in rehabilitation, accountability, restitution. I have to believe that it is possible if they're willing to put the work in. But we're talking about actions, not words. And so I truly believe if someone is really, truly accountable and willing to do the work, willing to go to counseling, willing to confront the demons that created this, willing to confront the generations that perhaps that this has been, and you're trying to change your entire family line and actually do the work, I believe it can be relearned behavior and they can go on to have a productive, healthy relationship in life, be an asset going forward. But they have to do the work. And if they're looking for an easy fix or someone's going to flip a light switch and it's just going to change, or not going to go follow the steps in the program, there's more to just the actual anger management program. There's a whole bunch of work that still has to go into place afterwards. And I believe people almost need tune-ups as they go through, as they navigate different stressors that come through life and different highs and lows that will happen. I believe they can. Unfortunately, I don't see a high percentage of people willing to really put in the work, that are willing to do the effort that it takes to change, and that's the problem we're running into. Yeah. I've seen some, but that's a very small percentage.
Yeah, I think that's the hope, right? But what we find oftentimes is, whether it's not to take the plea deal or whatever it is, they're going to be like, yep, I'll go to the class. And what I find is oftentimes they're not going to the classes. They're not even participating in the classes, right? Because like Stephanie said, you got to want to do the work and you got to want to change your behavior. And that's a mindset change too, right? Like if this is what you've been doing and you haven't been held accountable, then you got to change your mindset that this is not appropriate behavior. And then you have to internalize that. And that means you have to admit that you were wrong, or you have to admit, like, I might have some behaviors I need to adjust. And so I think that takes some inner work that everyone might not be willing and ready to do. So exactly. I think that's the hope. That's why we put these courses in place and that's why we do these things. However, it has to want to be a changed behavior.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think recidivism rates in my area are pretty high as well. And again, just to echo what, Simone and Stephanie said, you really have to want to. You can't just agree to it because you got caught or agree to it because you were arrested. You have to actually need to acknowledge the fact that there's an issue here, right? That there's a disconnect somewhere in the algorithm of your relationship between you and the person that you have abused. I think it requires a deep dive, not only into what happened last Saturday when I was drunk and I abused my partner, but what happened when I was, 3, 4, 5 years old, and what kind of life experiences was I a part of, and what kind of values were instilled on me when I was at that most impressionable age. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think it could be done. I think it's done every day. I don't think it gets the attention that it deserves, some people who have truly rehabilitated themselves. But I think it's definitely possible. It takes a lot of work, but definitely possible.
All right, guys. I really appreciate the conversation we had today. Sounds like we got a lot of good comments and information out to everybody. Remember, if you are in a situation and you need some help, there's a number down there below, domestic violence hotline. But we are not done with you, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, we got a little something. This is a pretty heavy topic we were talking about today, so I want to kind of lighten this up, and I want to do that by doing this little game with you. Family game night. All right, you guys ready for this? We got our category today is I saw the signs. Right, we're talking about signs here, and that was I saw the sign, right? So, see, somebody know that song, right? Universal signs and symbols. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flash sign up there and give you some multiple choice answers there, and then you guys try to tell me what that sign is, and the one with the most right at the end of this will win a fabulous prize here. Let me show you what your prize can be. This is on the website. If you guys want a fabulous prize of your own, you can go to our website at blackandblue.us. There's my co-host on occasion, Elizabeth, there. Just go to the merch store, and when you go to the merch store, click this little banner that comes up, and it'll take you to the merch store. And that first t-shirt there is what our guest's gonna get here for winning. But you can also get tanks, and we got the long sleeve shirts, and we got different designs, and we got jackets, and we got hoodies, and we got hats, ball caps, and we got scullies and bucket caps, and we got mugs. We got everything there. So make sure you get on over there to www.blackandblue.us, and you can get your own. So your number, your name is going to be your buzzer. So whenever you feel that you got the answer, just shout out your name, and you will be awarded that chance. If you get it wrong, you'll be locked out the rest of that question. So here we go. Here's your first one here. Sign number 1. Does that mean hot, redness, flammable, or
Joe.
fire over the line?
Simone.
Joseph,
Joe.
Amy, what is that?
Flammable. See.
That is flammable. Yes. Flammable. All right, see? Easy, just like that. All right, here we go. Second sign. This sign right here, does that mean circle back?
Simone.
Simone. All right, recycle, nonstop, or going green? Simone.
B, recycle.
It is recycle. All right, there we go. All right, here we go. Sign number 3, does that mean toxic, deadly, do not enter, or really
Joe.
scary?
Simone.
Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
Toxic.
That is toxic, yes. All right, yes, that is toxic. Okay. We got these signs. Come on, everybody know the signs. Everyone know the signs here. Next one here, sign number 4. Does this mean percent?
Simone.
Joe.
Time. Infinity. Or pi? Simone, what is that?
Hi.
Simone.
That is pi, yes. Math symbol for pi.
I think Joe got
Who else?
overlooked on that one, but that's okay.
Yeah. I think I heard her. You got to shout it out. Stephanie, get on the board here.
I know, right?
Sign number 5. Does this mean walking path, pedestrians, shoppers, or
Stephanie.
beware of purse
Simone.
snatchers? That was Simone again.
B, pedestrians.
Sorry, I wasn't laughing.
I think that was Stephanie on that one, but
Yeah,
It's okay.
you sure it's not beware of purse snatchers? No, that is pedestrians. Did you shout out there, Stephanie? I'll make sure we
It's all
make sure we
good.
get.
It's all good.
Shout it out.
I did
shout
with
out.
low
Come on.
bass, so it might not have registered.
All right, how about this one?
Joe.
This sign is
Stephanie.
Joe.
sharp object, piranha fish, scissors,
Joe.
or Bluetooth. We're gonna give this some Stephanie. Stephanie, what is it?
D, Bluetooth.
It is the Bluetooth.
It was my one.
We wanted her to get on the board. Sign number 7. What is this here?
This is for
this
Damien.
steering wheels, crabs on the beach, infectious, or circle of
Joe.
life? Go ahead, Joe.
C, infectious.
It is infectious. All right,
Crabs
so
on
we
the
got
beach.
we got Joe with 3, Simone with 3, and Stephanie with 1. But she can catch up. We got enough here for you. What about this one here?
Simone.
Is
Stephanie.
this Simone chimed in
Joe.
first, but is it
Simone
railroad,
got it.
rest and relaxation, road runner, or risk versus reward? Go ahead, Simone.
A, railroad.
It is railroad. All right, she's got 4 now. How about this one here? What does this mean? Does this mean do not touch, may create a rash, corrosive, or keep your hands to yourself?
Simone.
Simone.
C, corrosive.
It is C, corrosive.
Woo.
Ooh wee.
She's pulling away. She's pulling away, folks.
Yes,
I'm
she's got
cheering
5.
for
She's got 5.
I'm cheering
Joe's got
for her.
3.
Thank you for the support. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. And Women's History Month, thank you for the support.
Thank you. I am cheering for my girls, my women out there. Yes.
Yes. All right, here we go. Number 10. How about this? What does this mean? Does this mean beware of snakes, safe zone, no signal, or medical
Joe.
staff?
Stephanie.
Joe. What is that, Joe?
I don't know. D medical staff?
Oh, you guessed it. You guessed right. It is medical staff. All right. Couple more here for you. How about this one here? What does this mean? Does this mean truck stop, loading dock, truck repair zone, or steep grade?
Simone,
Joe.
Simone. Simone chimed in first. What is that?
D, steep grade.
It is steep grade. And whoever's getting in is
I think
not
I'm slow
missing.
internet.
Yeah, blame it on that. Blame it on that. Yeah.
It's a slow internet.
About a couple more. How about this one? What does this mean? Does this mean radioactive, Wi-Fi, hurricane
Joe.
zone, or target store?
Joe.
Joe jumped in. What is that?
A, radioactive?
It is radioactive. Okay, so Joe's got 5, Simone's got 6, and Stephanie, you got, at least you got on the board. You got 1. And I think this is the
I'm on the
last.
board.
At least you're on the board, but this is our last one. Let's see if we can get this one. What does this mean? Is this lock and key?
Simone.
O positive blood, male or female? Simone, what is it? Wait. Did Stephanie jump in first? Because I thought I heard Simone.
She called in
Stephanie
Simone's
jumped
name.
in my name.
All right, Stephanie, what was it? I must have.
D, female.
It is the female. Oh man, did I hear that
I said,
wrong?
man, I didn't
Slow
know that.
internet, huh? Slow internet, huh? Oh well, that did not change the outcome.
Congratulations, Simone.
That did not change the outcome. So we got the winner. That is Simone.
And they stay there.
She killed it. It was actually close. She had 6 and
Congratulations.
and Joseph had 5. Hey, but she got 2. You got 2 on the board there, Stephanie.
I was saying Simone.
Okay, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you
That's
were
a shame.
saying
I should have known
Simone.
that in Women's History Month, shouldn't I? Sorry.
All right. Before we get you out of here, how about some words of wisdom or some party shots on the way out here? We'll start with you, Joseph.
Dale, I just want to thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure to be in such great company with everybody and with such knowledgeable guests. Domestic violence is a conversation that I think more of us need to have. It's a conversation that should not be stigmatized. And it's a conversation that, quite frankly, we should have a lot more of. Again, children are our future. So give them the tools they need to succeed. Children model or children learn best by modeling our behavior. So that means we have an awesome challenge, and that is to provide the best example we can to give our children the best chance they have in life. So once again, thank you very much for including me. And I look forward to doing this again.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Simone.
Yes. Again, thank you for having me on tonight. This was a very important topic that we need to continue to have, and not just in October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but consistently throughout the year. What I want to say, if there's anyone watching that's in an intimate partner violence relationship, or if you're someone who knows someone, just try to get yourself out in the most safest manner. In addition to that, if you're someone who knows someone, be there as a resource for them. Do not be judgmental, be open, because they need you, they need your support. And know that just to value yourself and just stay aware of those signs. And like I said, if you are in a relationship, try to exit as safely as you possibly can.
Absolutely. And sorry that Damien couldn't get back on, but we'll have him on in the future because I'm sure he had some great things to say. But Stephanie.
They say domestic violence, 1 out of 4 has experienced domestic violence. Actually, I think the statistics are going to 1 out of 3 now. So if you look to your left, you look to your right, one of you has experienced, is experiencing, or will experience domestic violence. This is a epidemic that has been in place well before the pandemic, and we have to keep talking about it. We have to have the tough conversations. We need you, like I've said before, if it is you that is in that situation, to please reach out, call someone, tell someone, find a safe person that you can speak to and start the conversation on what you can do with your action plan or how to keep yourself safe. If you think or you know someone is in one, get educated and get the resources as well, so you know the best way that you can assist them. We have to keep talking about it. Like I said, this is something that we need to talk about year round, and we want to stop this cycle, and it has to start with each one of us. And if we can keep talking about it and pushing it and knowing the resources, then we can keep saving these lives one day at a time, one person at a time. Thank you for having me today and allowing me to share.
Absolutely, absolutely. And real quick comment from, again, on Facebook from Armendia Rojas. She says, Stephanie, have you written a book? Your testimony is powerful.
Ooh, I wish I had a dollar every time somebody's asked me that. No, not yet.
Yet.
On the list.
Yes.
Yet.
Operative phrase here. And real quick, Melva Stennis again says, powerful conversations. Thanks for the information and knowledgeable panel. I couldn't agree more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for a wonderful show, and stay right there. I'll be back here in a minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this panel today. This was a great show that we had. A lot of good information there for you. I hope you got that domestic violence hotline. If you or anyone you know is caught in that situation there, make sure you can help them to get out. We all need help from time to time. I know I do. So use that phone call. Be a shoulder that they can lean on if they need that help. We got a great panel today. Sorry that Damien couldn't come on. We'll get him on in the future, like I said. Hey, but this was a great time. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, go on to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn if you want to see the replay of this. Till next time, my name is Dale, Black and Blue, and I'm out. We'll see you.
Smoke spirals off your cigarette. Door slam to figure silhouettes. Is this over? Is this over? Is this over? Can this be over now? Is this over? Is this over? Is this over? Can this be over now? Baby, I surrender. I can't take it anymore. I don't want to remember. Just